Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Higher Density Living. You are here with Jason Rigby and Alexander McCaig. We are on the mic, and you know we love talking about creation and creation's laws. Well, we're not the first people to talk about it, and I think it's important that we highlight some of the great thinkers of antiquity here. Well, I guess however old you want to go back, and discuss, their thoughts and their ideas at that time. Now, we all know that human knowledge, some has been lost through deluges and every other possible fucking catastrophe that's happened on this planet. But knowledge gets rediscovered and it gets reworded in a sense so that it has better context for our time, so that it's better adapted and received by the general public. And now you and I are fortunate enough to have these microphones. So we
check 1, 2. What is it?
Yeah, wah, 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 wah. So because we have this, we have the ability to share and educate at a much more accelerated pace than theologians had far back in the day, or other people back in antiquity when everything was just spoken word. So we want to talk about Thomas Aquinas today, right?
Yes, and I want to kind of get into his magnum opus, the Summa Theologica.
That's
I'll
right.
have you pronounce my words better, since I get all the comments, YouTube comments for that. It's funny.
Theologiae.
So we're going to dive deep into question 45 of the first part, where Aquinas offers a meticulous examination of the concept of creation. And I think this is so interesting because Christian the founding fathers of Christianity, Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, it's so funny how off Christianity is today to where its original founding forefathers brought it, like Origen, those three is kind of like where everybody goes into the Essenes, into what Christian theology is. So now you have it like morphed into this craziness that is so rigid and frigid.
It's a dogmatic structure.
Yeah, it's a literal, which we've always say, if you take a book and you interpret it literally, that's the most basic way you can interpret a book.
Yes.
It's literal.
Yeah.
So a metaphorical is really tough to do and try to figure out, and you get to have conversations with yourself, and the text becomes alive, and you can read it.
But many of these people, like Thomas and others, they were well read on their own, so it wasn't for them. They didn't get much influence from other people. It was them for their own free interpretation.
Yes.
And many of the people were more mystics before they were actually rigid Orthodox, priests or theologians of their time. And that's why the elements you talk about where, hey, let's talk, what was the original Christianity like? Well,
I think having the church fall underneath the state, where I forgot what King James did all that and different people, with the King James Bible. So now when you have it brought underneath the state, what is the desire? Yeah. To make it literal, to translate it into like law and have order in it, systematic theology, like all these different things. But this is really interesting because he meticulously talks about the concept of creation. And he does an analysis that remains remarkably relevant to modern discussion. And so we have cosmology, metaphysics, and the philosophy of religion. So here's how he defines creation. And I want us to critique it. I think, with our creational laws, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
So I think we can critique it and agree. I think we'll have both. Aquinas begins by defining creation as the emanation of all being from the universal cause, which is God. Okay. So we're totally off now. Before you start, we're totally off from what modern day Christianity believes God is. His definition of God is totally different. And he's going to get into a little bit more, but go ahead.
When he said this emanation is it's like an explosion, a projection of energy that is coming out. And when he says it's like the original cause, I think that's pretty fucking accurate. Because if you consider the aspects of all the cycles of all the big bangs that we've been in, right, through this creation itself, cause and effect, this law that we go through, there has to be one initial cause. And for him to describe this, he talks about that initial energy signature. Yes. I mean, he calls it God. That's fine. Yeah. Call it whatever you want. God comes from goats. Goat hasn't even, it goes way, way back, all the way back to bro. But the idea here is that he looks at the major idea of cause and effect, not as like this figure of a person, like this old guy with a white beard that is your God determining things for you. He just has this projection of energy where all of this that exists comes from this initial cause, this explosion, this universal one signature that was released.
Yes.
This guy, 12, like 1200s, like this guy's on it.
Yeah, he says, for Aquinas, creation is not merely the shaping or ordering of pre-existing matter, but the production of being itself ex nihilo from nothing.
Okay. Wow. So this is.
I knew you would like this.
Yeah, this is really, really good. This is the first time for me hearing this. So for ex nihilo, what this means that something has to come from nothing. Nothing has to precede a physical object. So if you consider space, I'm sitting here in this chair. All right. The chair was empty space, but now I'm coming in here to occupy that empty space. So I'm eliminating empty space by putting myself inside of it.
Yes.
So in order for me to be in this chair, nothing has to be there. Yes. I mean, we could try to stack multiple people here, but it's not going to work. So the idea here is that out of the nothingness, something gets created. And it's a natural process that's really occurring. But his idea that from nothing, a cause exists, also drops back to the key point that there's this idea generation, that the creation is not something that's physical. And he's notifying this right here. He's like, hey, if I'm understanding this correctly, that nothing has to precede something, then the creation must be this energy cause, nothing else. That's what this God is in his mind.
Yeah, and this definition sets creation apart from all other forms of causation or change. In natural processes, new things come to be through the transformation of existing substances.
And he's not wrong. You know, there's this, because he started with one cause begets an effect, and that effect begets other causes. And so he said, once that one thing started, all things in a natural process over time are developing on their own into very natural systems. Planets, black holes, stars, gases, whatever you want to call it. All of those elements are mixing together and creating material in this physical universe that we're in, which we can see, and we have evolved and exist in today as human beings. Are you sure this guy wasn't like hanging out with like extraterrestrials or shit? Like,
well, probably downloads. But he says, but creation, as Aquinas conceives it, is the ultimate origin of existence itself.
Yeah, that's correct. It's this idea of creating. Because if he said it starts with nothing, the only thing it could come back to at its first singular point is a creation point.
Yeah.
Because I can't create if there's nothing to create upon, right? There has to be some sort of original central signature that I'm working with. And
the central signature, he says, in his, you got to remember his time frame, is an act of God. And here's how he says it. He says the central argument is that creation, properly understood, can only be an act of God. He reasons that since creation produces being itself, it requires infinite power. Something no finite creature possesses, no matter how exalted.
So this is interesting. His idea of God is actually far more flexible, like you were describing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he would be considered a heretic nowadays.
Yeah, this is
in modern Christianity.
Yeah, the Pope be like, cut this guy's head off.
Yeah. But he's the founder of Christianity, which is funny.
Yeah, and what's interesting, when he talks about this unlimited power, he's right. That's because that's what this creation is. Could you imagine how much power it'd take to create a universe? It's insane. It's insane, but he said it's beyond like a physical person.
Well, I also feel like the spiritual limitations of a human being, we can create in the sense of, we can't make something from nothing, but we can create in the sense of, we can maneuver matter. We can, I'm like, Jesus even talked about this when he said, if you had the faith of a grain of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain.
Right.
So he's like, if you believe it, you can achieve it, all the Napoleon Hill bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
But not bullshit, but I always say that because people laugh at that. I think the thought processes in those early 1920s, Rudolf Steiner, all of them had this same view. But I thought this was interesting. Aquinas takes this argument further, contending that even the mightiest angel cannot create the smallest speck of matter from nothing.
Yeah.
This is because the gap between non-being and being is, in a sense, infinite. And only an infinite power can bridge that gap.
So here's what's really intelligent about that comment. But when something is a being, physical, like you and me, you and I can be measured. I'm 6'5", right? You're 6'4", right? There's a measurement to us. There's a limitation. We're not unlimited in our physical bodies.
Right.
Our thoughts are unlimited. The ability for our consciousness, which is non-material, to go somewhere, but our physical body is limited. So what's great about this is he said the gap is large.
Yes.
Because the second you transverse or like go over, step into this non-material, purely spirit-based world, that energy doesn't have a measurement to it.
No, it's infinite. Yeah.
You don't perceive things like we do as human beings.
Right.
It doesn't have a form.
Right.
It just is, right?
The game, which is the infinity, is infinite. But the player, when he's earning points going through the game in third density, as he's building up his armor, he gets new weapons, he gets new things. I'm using that in relevance. That changes, but the physical limitation of the weapon that you have or the body armor that you use, those are all based off of what your density is. We were talking about that off air, but
yes.
It's kind of it's a matrix, so it's kind of the game. This is what
let me ask you this: draw electricity for me in 4 dimensions.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't fucking do it.
No.
So if I'm asking questions to take something that is immeasurable, the gap he discusses is really, really accurate.
Yes,
that is infinite because you've left the systems of measurement and you've moved into a non-material space. So the power threshold has to match.
Yes.
It's the law of equality that has to be there. So the power also has to be matched to the unlimitedness, the non-measurement.
The yin and the yang, the law of equality. Like
it's got to be there.
You have to have as above, so below. That's what you're talking about. You have to have, if you're going to have positive polarity, you have to have negative polarity.
Yeah, if you're going to have measurement, you're going to have non-measurement.
This is interesting. Aquinas also rejects the idea that creatures could serve as instruments of creation wielded by God. He argues, so this is where like politicians are like, God has caused me to do this, or a lot of people say that, the devil made me do it. So listen to this. This is really, he argues that instrumental causality always involves working on some pre-existing subject, which creation ex nihilo precludes by definition. This nuanced view challenges some popular concepts of how God might interact with the world. So
everybody thinks that God uses...
Well, this is narcissism.
It's people as pawns, and then people say that God or some other supreme being forced me to do it. When he's saying is like, absolutely not.
No.
Why would something of such great power...
Creation is.
It's just,
It's not looking at Alex as something special.
No, but it's already done it.
It's already done it.
It's already created.
Yes,
it's already created. It's already done. It's already put those elements in place. So why would it go through the effort of trying to manage you and your choices? It's just a way for people to pass off their responsibility.
Listen to Creation and Nature, what he says about this. This is why I knew you'd love this.
I like this a lot.
When it comes to the natural world, Aquinas holds a subtle position. He argues that creation is presupposed. This is what you just said.
Yeah.
He argues that creation is presupposed by, but not directly involved in, the operations of nature. Natural agents produce new substances by acting on existing matter.
Yes.
Not by creating new being from nothing.
Yeah, people don't do that.
It's all created all for you. The game's already made.
All the material, everything that's required.
Then how you operate in it.
I'm a farmer, okay? Let's just state that. Everything in the field is there for me to grow crops. Mm-hmm. I'm not creating crops out of a nothingness. All of the substance, all of the substrata, everything that is there, all of the water exists at that point. It's already put in place. What I'm doing is putting a new cause in all of these systems of cause and effect to generate a new thing, but not out of ex nihilo, not out of nothingness. Everything's there. I'm essentially changing the form of the water, the air, the sunlight, the earth to help generate something with its genetic material to create a carrot.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you're saying. You're ahead of him.
Okay.
Listen to this. Even the emergence of new forms in nature is understood as co-creation rather than creation proper.
Did he really say this? This is just wild.
Forms for Aquinas are not substantial entities, but principles by which things exist. As such, they are not created directly, but come to be as part of the creation of composite substances. This view has interesting implications for how we understand the relationship between divine action and natural processes. A topic of ongoing debate, science.
But people bring those things together.
But he's saying he takes, they said, a subtle view. That's a very important word, and I think the creational laws are there for you to use, and you can co-create with them, but you can't take something out of nothing. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the laws are there to co-create.
We don't have the power to do that.
Exactly.
Everything's in place. all probabilities. Remember that?
But God is not this personal being that you pray to, and then he's going to specifically take time because he's omniscient, all-knowing. And he's be like, you know, Alex, you prayed for that.
Yeah.
I think you deserve this.
Of all the infinite amounts of billions of planets and billions of creatures and billions of people and billions of microorganisms, actually way more than billions, right? To some incredible power, Googleplex power. Oh yeah, I'm gonna manage and catalog all those things.
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure things work right for you because you were talking to me. Because you think I'm here and I'm more important than you, and you're giving me all that power, I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna give you what you need. You want to go slaughter a field of people? You want peasants to pay you taxes? You want to be royalty? I can do that for you. You just got to pray harder.
Yeah.
And then the middlemen stepped in.
Well, that's how a lot of these religions started, with these men. So in another section, Aquinas argues that all created things bear a trace of the Trinity. So when he uses the word Trinity, we have a lot of garbage with it now. He's talking about it operates in threes. Yeah. And it's threes with the three circles. It's in unity, and they have equal in weight and importance.
Well, you got mind, body, and spirit, right?
Yeah. He sees this trace in the fact that each creature, A, subsists in its own being, B, has a form determining its species, and C, has an ordering to other things.
Absolutely.
I know. I was like, bro, is this dude, where is he coming up at?
Could you imagine sitting down, rolling a joint with this guy or something, having some scotch with him?
This idea of creation bearing an imprint of its creator is a rich one, inviting reflection on the deep structure of reality and the relationship between the world and its divine source. So I love the word imprint of its creator.
Yeah, so where do we get this, or how would I say this? An imprint for us as human beings is genetic code. Mm-hmm. What do? We imprint our genetic code into other people, sperm into egg, right? Egg forms, blah, 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 blah. It evolves. Guess what? DNA is shared. There's an imprint. Mm-hmm. It's been passed through for time, very, very long amounts of time. Ideas get imprinted. All of those things are passed forward, but what you see is that the creation itself has afforded us the ability to co-create with others. A baby doesn't just pop up in someone's stomach, okay? It just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen.
There has to be a co-creative effort required for this to occur. And if you take it a step further, ask yourself this question. So if that co-creation principle is in place, and it requires those two energies, well, that means creation has to have those base two energies, those positive and negatives, right? Potentiating and receiving.
That's what creates. Out of nothing.
Yes, precisely. So it had to create some sort of energy signature that he talked about in the beginning that encompasses the positive and the negative, to do all these things, to allow people to be their own independent beings that are nothing but an imprint of creation. We don't look like we're out. A human being is a form of creation. We don't sit outside of it. We're not special. It's just all this stuff came together to be this is a very good preferable form over the grand evolution of creation itself.
Yes.
And we operate as such, but we have the imprint of all the creational laws, all of that energy, but together in physical form, we must co-create.
Yeah, and I think people get confused because, especially with Aquinas, are these, Origin, or, even in the Socratic, Aristotle, Plato, all that, they get framed in this medieval scholastic terms, but the issues are the same that everyone grapples with. And that's, even in contemporary philosophy, theology now, the nature of causality,
first principles,
the origin of the universe,
first principles,
the relationship between God and the world, and the metaphysical structure of reality.
Yeah.
Those are all the questions. What I like about him, though, even in medieval times, before medieval times, Aquinas' careful logical analysis, his attempt to integrate philosophical reasoning with theological concerns, and I think offers a model for interdisciplinary dialogue. And I think he's just as valuable today as any time.
Yeah, and
I don't think we should antiquate him.
No, Aquinas is not antiquated. No. And what the cool part about it is that level of dialogue within the church is left. It's left within religion.
It's gone, yeah.
The dogmatism and ideology has become so rigid.
Fundamentalism,
Yeah, and this is too open.
It's way too
the
open.
way he describes it is the power spectrum. The power is with creation. It's not actually with...
Well, how would you say, just take his principles, how would you say the Catholic Church is the only church? That's what they say. You have to get baptized into the only church, which came from Peter, From Jesus to Peter, first Pope Peter,
Which is insane.
To here. So he's saying God he has no respecter of persons. Like God doesn't look at you as an individual because God is just creation as whole.
At the first church.
It's just all love. There's no, that's so egotistical, so man-made. It's almost, if you really, really think about it, it's almost how an atheist thinks. Because an atheist thinks in such a narcissistic, evolutionary way, like in the sense of like a true. If you talk to a true atheist, not an agnostic.
Here's an amoeba.
Yes.
Yeah. Or here's space dust. Here's the amoeba.
We figured it out.
Here's the sludge. The primordial sludge.
Yes. And everybody else is an idiot.
Yeah.
It's the Catholic Church has this materialistic view too of like, here's a theology. We figured it out. This is who we are. Anything that's separate from.
That's what
you have to be careful of.
Like even atheism is very isolating, which is completely unnatural. It's non-co-creative. It doesn't recognize the unity principle of everything that's occurring. It's closer than religion, but still far away with the fact that it's not talking about the fact that we are co-creators.
Because and I'm not just going to slam the Catholic Church because the Jews have this too, where they think they're God's chosen people,
and the Muslims.
And the Muslims have this with it's the same thing over and over again. Where Thomas Aquinas just slams all of religion in a good way, where he's like, "Hey, it's creation, and creation made nature, and there's laws. You're in third density. Here you go." Yeah,
I feel like he was hanging with like the Dogon tribe.
Well, like I think you were right. I think somebody was like, dude, like giving him little.
It's so against the grain and so heretical at that time. I'm surprised he like.
But people will quote him because he has good quotes, and he's masked in Christianity language. Like the medieval language, like the Trinity, God, Father, the Son, Holy. So they'll pick out the quotes and then ignore all the rest.
All the good shit.
That he's
all the real stuff.
Like if you really ask, he according to all modern religions, Thomas Aquinas is a heretic, and that's why we love to discuss heretics to you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us on another episode of...
Two heretics right here?
Yeah, two heretics and a podcast.
No stakes, please. No fire.
No guillotines.
No.
Yeah. All right, everybody. See you later. Thank you.